The world went silent around me. I stood in my parents' living room, humiliated and shaking. My sister, Claire, was slumped dramatically on the velvet armchair, clutching a small, open jewelry box to her chest. Her sobs were loud, theatrical. "She took Grandma's necklace," Claire wailed, loud enough for the neighbors probably. "I saw her in my room just before it vanished." My heart pounded hard against my ribs. I felt the blood drain from my face. "I didn't touch it," I cried out, my voice raw and cracking with disbelief. This was insane. I watched my parents. They didn't even look at me. They exchanged a brief, cold, and utterly silent glance, a look that sealed my guilt without a single word. My father finally spoke, his voice heavy with disappointment, and it was the worst sound I had ever heard. "Maya, maybe it's best if you leave the house for a while." That single sentence shattered everything I thought I knew about our family. I didn't argue. I just went upstairs and packed a small suitcase. My hands trembled as I folded my clothes. The silence from my mother was worse than any shouting. She stood in the doorway, her arms crossed, refusing to meet my eyes. "You've been struggling financially, Maya," she murmured, her voice barely a whisper. It just makes sense." Her words cut deeper than any knife. That a desperate situation I was trying to fix could be used as proof of my guilt. As I zipped up the bag, Claire appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame. Her tears were gone, replaced by a victorious, nasty smirk that twisted her face. As I walked past her, headed for the stairs and the front door, she leaned in and whispered, low enough only I could hear, "You shouldn't have made me look bad, Maya." I realized then that this was never about the necklace. It was about power and resentment that had been building for years. The following days were a blur of shock and sadness. I crashed on my friend Amy's sofa. Amy was supportive, but my phone stayed silent. No calls from my mother, no check-in text from my father. They had completely isolated me. The feeling was like being cut adrift in a cold sea. I tried to focus at my job, but I could feel the tension. My boss, Mr. Thompson, started giving me strange, prolonged looks in the hallway. I knew the rumors were already spreading through the small town, carried on the wings of my sister's sorrowful performance. The worst part was knowing I couldn't defend myself against a lie my own family endorsed. My exclusion was complete, total, and heartbreaking. Late that night, unable to sleep, I made the mistake of checking my social media. Claire had posted a perfectly curated photo of a blurry, tear-stained face with a devastating, subtle caption that cut deep. "Never thought my own blood could betray me." The fallout spread like a bad flu. Old friends, people I had known since kindergarten, started keeping their distance. They were polite, but their eyes were full of judgment. Even the women in my church group, who were usually full of warmth and gossip, avoided me in the grocery store aisles. I felt the weight of their disapproval with every silent exchange. I found out later that Claire had been telling people a much darker story, whispering that I stole for drug money because of my recent job difficulties. The lie was spreading faster than the truth ever could. The twist of this lie was how believable it felt to everyone who already judged me for being less financially successful than Claire. One afternoon, my landlord, Mr. Henry, stopped me as I was coming up the steps. He looked confused and concerned. He told me someone had called him pretending to be a reference check for a new apartment, asking invasive questions about my finances and habits. The attempt to sabotage my life was ruthless and coordinated. I finally reached my breaking point. I couldn't live under this cloud of lies anymore. I grabbed my keys and drove straight to my parents' house. I needed to look them in the eyes and make them see the truth. I needed them to choose me, their own daughter. My father answered the door, but he opened it just a crack. using his shoulder to block my entry. His expression was stern and weary. "Claire's been through enough, Maya," he sighed, his voice tired. "She's very fragile right now. Please don't come back until you fix this." The door closed with a firm click. It was final. I walked back down the path and collapsed onto the curb, sobbing into my hands. I felt utterly abandoned. I realized they were protecting the lie, not Claire. Just then, a familiar black sedan pulled up smoothly right beside me. It was Claire's car. Claire rolled down the window slowly, her lips curved in that familiar, sickening smirk. She looked entirely comfortable, entirely victorious. "Still denying it, Maya?" she asked, her voice light and casual, as if discussing the weather. "You always were the drama queen, making a scene everywhere you go." Her words felt like a physical blow. I wiped my wet face with the back of my hand, forcing myself to look her in the eyes. I felt a surge of cold fury. "I hope it was worth it, Claire," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. The cost of her lie was my entire life. She tilted her head, enjoying the moment completely. "Oh, it was," she confirmed, her smile widening. And then I saw it. The sun hit her neck, making something flash and gleam. A heavy silver chain, resting against her skin. It was dangling, mocking me with its presence, proving her malice. My breath hitched in my throat. It was the necklace. Grandma's necklace. It was right there, unmistakable, draped around Claire's neck. The large antique silver pendant gleamed under the afternoon sunlight. The sight of it, bold and blatant, stole all my remaining sadness and replaced it with sharp, cold clarity. I reached for my phone, my hand steady now, and quickly, discreetly, took a photo of Claire wearing the stolen piece. I made sure the timestamp on my phone was clear, the image sharp, the proof undeniable. I had it. The evidence. I knew this was too powerful to waste. Claire's car pulled away, leaving me sitting on the curb, the photo of the truth burning a hole in my pocket. Amy, who had followed me, rushed over. "You should have recorded the whole thing when she was mocking you." I just shook my head. I had the physical proof I needed. The next morning, I sent the photo, the clear proof of Claire's lie, to my parents via email. I attached a simple, heartbreaking note. "This is the truth." I waited, hopeful, for a moment of apology, a flood of relief. Instead, my mother responded minutes later. Her email was short and brutal. "Don't send fake pictures, Maya. This isn't helping anyone. Stop this childish game and focus on fixing your life." My blood ran cold. Claire's lies were not just believed, they were actively protected. I realized then that Claire must have told them I was planning a photographic smear campaign against her. But the twist came later. I discovered that my mother had actually called the phone company to check my recent activity logs, seeing if I had taken many photos around the time I sent the image. She was actively trying to find evidence that the photo was doctored before my father could even see it. The rejection from my mother solidified my resolve. I was done waiting for justice to fall from the sky. I would build my own case. I started documenting everything with a cold, focused fury. Every nasty text message I received, every rumor I heard, every subtle, stolen thing Claire flaunted online, trying to pass off as her own. I organized all the screenshots and messages into neat, chronological folders on my laptop. I became a detective in my own tragedy. I knew Claire's arrogance would be her undoing. She was too proud of her deceit to hide it completely. I needed to find the next lead. A few days later, a coworker named Ben stopped by my desk. He paused awkwardly before speaking. "Hey, Maya," he said quietly, looking concerned. "I know things have been weird, but wasn't your sister selling some jewelry on Facebook Marketplace a few weeks ago? I thought it was strange." He looked unsure, like he was betraying a secret, but he was telling me the truth. Ben's careless comment was the lead I needed. I immediately searched Claire's name on Facebook Marketplace. My hands were shaking, but not from sadness this time, from pure anticipation. And then I found it. A listing that had been active a few weeks prior. My stomach dropped as I clicked on the image. It was Grandma's necklace, the same heavy silver pendant clearly photographed on a velvet cushion. The listing described it as a vintage family heirloom. The price was high, but the proof was priceless. I quickly took multiple screenshots of the entire listing, including the description and the original posting date, before she could delete it. I felt a surge of sick satisfaction. She hadn't just lied about me taking it, she was selling it for money. Before I could even think about what to do next or report it to the platform, I refreshed the page. The listing had vanished. I knew she was getting nervous, likely after a close call with an interested buyer. The vanishing listing meant I had to act fast. I needed undeniable, spoken proof, not just screenshots. I knew Claire was greedy, and that was my biggest weapon. I created a new Facebook account using a fake profile picture and a generic neutral name. I messaged Claire immediately, pretending to be an eager buyer interested in the vintage necklace. Claire responded within minutes, clearly desperate for the sale. I played the part of a rich collector. I complimented her on the piece's beauty and uniqueness. After a few back-and-forth messages where I was careful to keep her focused on the monetary value, I suggested we meet in person. I told her I wanted to inspect the quality before transferring a large sum of money. Claire, blinded by the potential profit, agreed without hesitation. She suggested a quiet, out-of-the-way cafe near her work for the exchange. The trap was set. The next afternoon, I waited in the cafe, trying to keep my nerves steady. Claire arrived, looking professional and slightly rushed. I had my phone set up, recording the entire conversation discreetly. I wore a hat and kept my face angled away from her. The moment she pulled out the necklace, confirming it was the piece I was interested in, I felt a chilling calm. I asked Claire about the necklace's history, pretending to be a connoisseur. Claire, naturally, started bragging. I captured the moment she spoke the lie out loud that the piece was a family heirloom she inherited from a deceased relative. The video was clear, the lie undeniable. Proof in her own voice. I made an excuse about needing to visit the bank for the cash and quickly made my exit. Just as I stepped outside the cafe doors, my heart nearly stopped. At a table near the window, a familiar woman sat with a cup of coffee. It was my mother, looking directly at the spot where Claire and I had been sitting. She had overheard everything. I drove away quickly, my mind spinning from the shock of seeing my mother there. That night, she called me. Her voice was shaking, not with confusion, but with utter panic. "Your sister said you were blackmailing her with a fake buyer, Maya," she stammered. "She said you were trying to hurt her. What is going on? Why did I see you?" The denial was still strong, but now laced with fear. I decided not to speak. Instead, I sent her the video. The clear footage of Claire selling the necklace, claiming it was her inheritance, captured just feet away from where my mother was sitting. I added a single text. "Now look at the proof you missed." Hours later, Claire posted a frantic defensive message online. "Some people will fake anything for attention. The truth always wins." The twist, I learned my mother had been meeting Claire at that cafe regularly to give her money, fearing my sister's financial instability would be exposed. The very next day, my boss called me into his office. He looked miserable. "Maya, I'm sorry," he said, his eyes avoiding mine. "It's too much drama. The rumors, the calls, we have to let you go." The final nail in the coffin of my public life. I was fired. The small amount of money I had saved quickly dwindled. Bills piled up, and soon I was skipping meals just to save enough for rent. I felt the pressure mounting, yet a strange, quiet calm settled over me. I had nothing left to lose. My dignity had been stolen, my job was gone, and my family hated me. But I had the truth, and it was better than any meal. One morning, there was a sharp, unexpected knock at my door. My heart jumped into my throat. I looked through the peephole and saw a uniform. It was the police. I opened the door slowly, my hands sweating. The officer, a young woman with a gentle expression, spoke immediately. "Maya Evans, you're not in trouble," she said, sensing my fear.
We just need to ask you some questions about your sister, Claire Evans. She explained that Claire had filed a police report 3 months ago claiming that Grandma's necklace was stolen, and then, a few weeks later, she had filed an insurance claim for the theft. The twist is that the police actually told me that Claire had called them first, giving my address, claiming I was harassing her and had threatened to fake evidence to frame her for the theft she reported. The company flagged the claim as suspicious, but Claire preemptively tried to frame me for witness tampering. The officer then added, almost as an afterthought, that they needed a statement from me and any relevant evidence regarding the original theft that Claire reported. I felt a slow, triumphant smile spread over my face. I have plenty, I told her.
I led the officers inside and sat down at my small kitchen table. I opened my laptop and presented them with everything, chapter and verse. The screenshots of the necklace listed on the marketplace, the video footage of Claire selling it and claiming it was an inheritance, the text messages and the time frame of the police report compared to the insurance claim. The officers were completely stunned, their professional masks slipping for a second. "You've been gathering this for months?" the senior officer asked, completely shocked by the level of detail. I simply nodded. "I just wanted the truth to be heard," I said quietly. They spent almost an hour copying the digital evidence. The fact that Claire had tried to frame me for witness tampering just made my evidence look more credible. The senior officer stood to leave, pausing at the door. "You'll want to be home tomorrow, Miss Evans," he said with a knowing look. "We'll be following up at the other address." I followed the officer's advice and waited at Amy's apartment the next day, watching the street through the window, my heart pounding. I saw the familiar police car pull up to my parents' house. I knew my parents would be home. I saw 2 officers walk up the path and knock firmly on the front door. My parents opened it, looking confused. Then, a moment later, I saw Claire appear behind them. Her face was initially smug, ready to play the victim again, but as the officers spoke to her, her expression shifted. It changed from arrogance to confusion, then to pure, pale terror as they mentioned the insurance claim number and the name of the marketplace buyer. After about 20 minutes, the officers walked out of the house. One of them was holding a small brown jewelry box. The evidence. They had found the necklace, likely hidden in Claire's room. News travels fast in a small community, but the truth travels like wildfire once the police are involved. Within hours, the neighborhood was buzzing. The word spread. Claire's insurance fraud report was official. The fact that she was selling the item she claimed was stolen was now public knowledge. Her social media profiles, once so boastful and full of lies, vanished completely. She couldn't face the judgment. Her friends, who had so quickly abandoned me, suddenly ghosted her, seeing the true nature of the person they defended. I got the first call while I was still watching the street from Amy's window. It was my parents. My father's voice was hoarse, thick with a terrible blend of guilt and shame. "Maya," he started, his voice barely steady. "We need to talk. Right now." The way he said "we" sounded weak, but the shift was undeniable. I drove back to my parents' house, but this time I wasn't pleading for acceptance. I was walking toward the truth. The silence in the living room was heavy, suffocating. My father finally broke it, his shoulders slumped in defeat. "We made a terrible mistake, Maya," he confessed, his eyes watering. My mother sat beside him, weeping quietly, unable to look up. I looked at my mother, the one whose doubt had stung the most. "You believed her," I said, my voice steady and cold, devoid of emotion. I wasn't looking for tears, I was stating a fact. Just as my mother lifted her head to reply, the front door burst open. It was Claire, her eyes blazing with fury. "You set me up!" she screamed, pointing a shaking finger at me. I didn't have time to respond to Claire's outburst. Right behind her, stepping calmly through the open doorway, was the senior police officer who had visited my apartment the day before. The officer was firm and professional, blocking Claire from moving any further into the room. "Miss Claire Evans," the officer stated clearly, his voice resonating through the shocked silence. "You are currently under investigation for insurance fraud and filing a false police report. I need you to come with me." Claire froze instantly, her face draining of all color. The anger vanished, replaced by a pure, profound terror. My parents gasped, clutching at each other. The ultimate twist was the timing. The police had followed Claire to the house, anticipating her confrontation with the family. I simply watched the truth unfold. The police escorting Claire out of the family home was the final, indelible image that cemented her downfall. Her reputation collapsed completely. The news traveled beyond our neighborhood, reaching her employer. She was immediately suspended pending the outcome of the fraud investigation. Her former friends, the ones she had gathered through lies and drama, completely abandoned her. Her carefully constructed world was in shambles. What I found most satisfying was the fact that I still hadn't posted a single word publicly. The truth, supported by official police action, was doing all the work for me. I didn't need revenge. I had vindication. Then, my phone rang. It was a local reporter, polite but eager. "Miss Evans," she said, "we're covering your sister's case. Would you like to share your side of the story? Tell us about the betrayal?" I politely declined the reporter's offer for a direct interview. I wasn't seeking fame or revenge against Claire. Instead, I shared my experience anonymously on a public online forum, not out of spite, but to raise awareness about how easy it is to become a victim of familial lies. I wrote about the pain of being exiled, of having your own parents choose belief over truth. My post went viral overnight. Thousands of people commented, sharing similar stories. I've been that sibling. No one believed me either. The outpouring of support was overwhelming. It showed me that my pain was universal. That evening, I received an email that made me stop scrolling and hold my breath. It was from an unfamiliar address. The sender introduced herself as Evelyn. She was an old friend of my grandmother's. I opened Evelyn's email, my hands shaking. Her words were gentle and kind, a warmth I hadn't felt in months. "I saw the story on the news, dear," she wrote. "Your grandmother always said you had her heart, the strong, honest one. She would be so proud of how you handled this awful situation." I read the line about my grandmother having faith in me over and over. It was the only validation I truly needed. Evelyn then sent me an attached photo, a beautiful, grainy picture of my grandma, younger, smiling, and wearing the exact same silver necklace. It was irrefutable proof of its true origin. The photo alone was a gift. Then the woman added a final, cryptic sentence that made my eyes go wide. "She also left something else for you, Maya, waiting for the right moment." A few days later, a small, carefully wrapped parcel arrived at Amy's apartment. It was a beautiful, slightly worn, leather-bound journal. I recognized the cover instantly. It was my grandmother's handwriting. My eyes welled up with tears. I opened the cover and, nestled inside in my grandmother's elegant script, was an inscription for the one who chooses truth over comfort. I finally allowed myself to cry, not tears of pain or anger, but a profound, cleansing sadness mixed with relief. My grandmother had seen the truth in me even when my own parents couldn't. This was her legacy to me. As I held the journal, my phone buzzed with an alert. It was an official email from the police department. The case against Claire was finalized. The officer stated that faced with the overwhelming evidence, Claire had pled guilty to the charges of insurance fraud and filing a false police report. 3 months later, I finally moved out of Amy's apartment and into my own small, sunny space downtown. The necklace, now legally returned to the family and given to me as a symbol of my innocence and strength, lay on my nightstand. It glinted under the morning sunlight. I learned a final devastating twist. My parents, convinced of my guilt, had already been in contact with a lawyer to have me legally removed from my grandmother's will and the family trust, a formal disownment to protect Claire's inheritance. The police investigation started just days before they finalized the papers. The police call hadn't just exposed Claire, it had saved my entire future. My parents visited, quiet and humbled. "We're proud of you," my father said, unable to meet my eyes. I smiled gently, feeling the strength in my own heart. I'm proud of me too. I lost my old life, but I had won my truth and my future. Sometimes the people who bury you forget you were a seed all along.